about and we're really happy to have you to answer our questions and address all our concerns. And welcome everybody for being here on a Sunday morning, and a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers over here. Hopefully, this is going to be pretty much a very big milestone for everybody in their journey of motherhood, that you've brought your child to this beautiful stage, and now they're at a point when they are going ahead. So, before I even ask Sanjay to introduce himself and share a little bit, I want to understand from you guys what it is that you all are looking for. And so I'm just going to launch a little poll for you to just share, firstly, what countries are you most concerned about, and what are you sort of looking for in terms of, which country are you looking for support on? So if you can see on your screen, you can just make your choice. Okay, so it looks like we are essentially looking at US, UK, Canada, right? That's sort of where everybody is sending their students. I know there are a few people also sending their kids to Europe. This seems to be the primary concern for everybody. And one last question before I move it over to Sanjay, a question that he himself was asking, that what is our primary concern over here, right? Can you see this launch saying what is your greatest concern? Can you see the poll? No.
No, ma'am.
No,
Let
not
me
yet.
just check.
We're still seeing the first one, the visa one.
Okay, then maybe I have to do a stop sharing first.
Yeah, wait, yeah.
No, okay, fine. I've done that. Yeah. Okay, all right. Then this one now. Here we are.
Right.
I think COVID has really frightened us all about waiting
Yes.
times. How long will it take? Will I get stuck? Will the students be struggling at the last minute? So,
Got it.
So here too, you'll see that waiting times are one of the primary concerns. And that's it from me. Sanjay, over to you. Do introduce yourself to them, and please do take off.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Richa, Romy, Ankit, and the entire team. It's wonderful to connect and also have a webinar where we can explain and possibly answer the questions, because I have been doing this now for good 37 years, with 15 years with the US Embassy, and then of course 22 years independent, and having a great team that works with me for visas. I've been getting, ever since COVID came in, the entire world shifted from various things, and they have started now, coming back into action. If we talk about US visas, or Canada and UK particularly, the US and most of the countries had stopped the operation starting 2020 May, and now even then, when was uh, COVID at the peak, the US Embassy and the other embassies did issue visas to the maximum, but it is just a matter of time that they're going to get back and start rolling out the visa appointments on regular basis. This is what happened in 2020, 21, 22, 23 has been much better, and it is much more streamlined. I'm going to talk about the wait time, and I'm going to talk about what are the processes, what are the documentation, and what we need to take care when you go in for your visa interview at the embassy, and what documents to be submitted for UK and for Canada as well. So so let me just break it up into countries. So I'll start with UK first. So UK primarily is, once you get your documentation in place and send it to the university, they would then release a document called CAS, which is called the Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies. That is the most important document for UK, because that is then connected with the border security, with the home immigration, and of course with the High Commission in India as well. So CAS primarily explains the name the course that you want to go and study there, and what are the living expense and the tuition fees, and what are the prerequisites. And in case if there's a condition, then that condition has to be met before we actually go in and apply for a visa until we get the CAS. So once you get the CAS, then we need to start rolling our visa process by first getting our medicals done. That's the first thing. And then you have to create your profile on their website and fill out the visa application form. And once you complete the visa application form, it asks you to pay for the health immigration health surcharge. For a year, the cost is about 73,000 rupees. If it's a 2-year program, then it's 1,35,000. The calculation is given there because it keeps changing. And for 2 years and 3 years, the system gives you the option to calculate the international students immigration health surcharge. Once you complete the health charge, then when completing your visa application form, the most important document for a UK visa is your financial paper. Financials, that means that the money should be in the account for 28 days and more. It should not be disturbed. It should be just static there. And it has to match up the CAS amount, which includes the tuition fees and your living expense. Whatever you've already paid to the university, that gets deducted, and it is already mentioned on the CAS. If you have paid any tuition fees, or if you're getting a scholarship, already all that is mentioned on the CAS. So whatever the amount is mentioned there, amount of that money equivalent should be in the saving account for 28 days before applying for the visa. The day you apply for your visa, that money should be there. It's not that you apply for your visa and then you start working on the financials. So one way is to have the financial documents in place. If it's the parents, those who are putting in the or showing the finances, they have to give an affidavit of support along with proof of relationship, like a birth certificate. If the birth certificate is in another language, it has to be translated and notarized, right? If it's an education loan, you can also show your tuition fees through an education loan. The language on the education loan that the bank would issue you should have the wording which says that the loan has been approved and is ready for disbursement. This word disbursement has to be there. It cannot say that the education loan is approved. It will not work. So because it's documentary based, for a UK visa, it is important that we make sure that these things are met with before applying for a visa. When you apply for your visa, you have to then take an appointment, go to the VFS office, submit your documents there in a particular order, which should be logical, like your passport, your appointment letter, your CAS, then your health surcharge, your medical documents, then your education documents and your financial papers. Once you submit your documents at the VFS office for UK, from there it takes about 15 working days. By and large, it's 15 working days. It may go up to 20, 25, but that's the kind of limit that they are actually adhered to. They would definitely get back to within 15 or 20 days. There is also something called as an expedited process where you can pay extra and get your application at the VFS office and get the application process in 3 days. They also have a process where it is urgent, where you can just submit your application today and get the result tomorrow. That's expensive. But I would say that we have time, and if we start the process keeping our deadlines in mind, it is possible that you would get your visas within 15 to 20 working days. So again, let me just reiterate on UK. CAS is very important. Once you get the CAS, make sure that you have the documents in place. And of course, the living expense in UK is calculated. If your college is in London, then it is £1,000 a month. If it's outside London, then it is £900 a month. That's how the calculation happens. Into 12, they're looking at the first 1 year of expense. So the living expense and the tuition fees put together should be in the account. Even if you pay full amount for your living expense, that's not counted. All right. But if you pay your tuition fees full or in part, that would be counted and that would show and reflect on your CAS. And the balance should be shown in your bank account for 28 days. I keep re-emphasizing on 28 days because that's the kind of stringent the UK High Commission is. If the money is less than 28 days or even less than £10, they will not accept it. So make sure that the money is there little above than whatever is required for your tuition and your living expense. So once you submit your application, it takes about 15 to 20 working days to get the result. So
So,
that's
Sanjay, there's a question here from Sakshi that do the funds have to be in the savings account only or can they be in fixed deposits?
good question. It technically it should be in your saving account. If it's a fixed deposit, then you have to go to the bank and the bank has to give you a letter specifically saying that this can be disbursed immediately and this is what the amount is. So do not calculate the interest on that. Only the principal, what is there, will be calculated when giving the letter for your visa. Is that clear? Any follow-up question on that?
No, that's clear, Sanjay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Okay, so now if we can move on to Canada. So in Canada, again, like UK, Canada is more document based. There is not an interview which is involved. However, there are little technicalities that I'm going to explain while going through the process. So first thing is admission offer. Now there are two types of admission offers that we are looking at this point of time. There is a conditional offer and an unconditional offer. Largely, most of the embassies would like to work on an unconditional offer. However, for the last couple of years, they've also, given a leverage for unconditional or conditional offer, where it says that if a student is studying in an IB board, and if they can show the predictive scores, it can still work. All right. So students are there. There are a lot of questions that, my IB board are going to happen sometime in July and the results are going to come out then. When should I apply? Will I have enough time? Well, now that you have a conditional offer, if you have predictive scores, we can still apply. And when your score comes in, we can upload that on the through the portal, and we can update that. So that's one. The second thing is in Canada, once you get your admission offer, first thing is to get your medicals done. When you get your medical done, you get a receipt which has to be uploaded when applying for a student visa. So medical, and then there's something called as GIC. It is called the Guaranteed Investment Certificate, which is for 10,000 Canadian dollars. So now the confusion over here happens that if the child is below the age of 17, he may not have his own account in India. Or if he has, it could be a joint account. Even in the joint account, the principal has to be the student. Why? Because all the documents which are uploaded for GIC, it goes to a Canadian bank. And when a student is in Canada, he's allowed to pull out 550 Canadian dollars for his living expense. So when he produces his identity there, it should not be a mismatch. So that's the reason we keep insisting that the account should be the student who's going to Canada, not the parents, because sometimes there's a joint account, the parent could be the principal and the child could be the beneficiary or the derivative. It has to be the other way around. If the child is above the age of 18, then he can, operate his own bank account. The GIC has to be operated or transferred. The money has to be transferred through the student's account, not through the parents. It's like I explained, because when the account goes there in Canada, when he's pulling out the money, the identity of the account holder and the person who's opened the account and the person who's withdrawing should be the same. So
Sanjay, I have a question here. May I ask?
Sure.
Yes,
So,
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just opened for my daughter the GIC account 3 days back. And I transferred money into that account from my account. And the account is opened in her name, although she is still not 18. And I have received the email of this thing, credit of into GIC account, the account number in Canada in her name. So is there a conflict in what you're saying and what I have done?
Yes, you should write to the GIC and explain them, because once she's there, there could be a conflict.
But the account is in her name with
But
her
that's okay.
identity.
But they also see that, where the money is coming from. So that's the reason I'm emphasizing and re-emphasizing on this, because this is the kind of standard operating procedure when
So
doing the
at the time of GIC opening, there was a question that, there was an option that parents can transfer the money provided they provide a proof of their relationship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you've done that, you should write to them and inform them once again, so that everything is overboard, because like I said, it is the standard operating procedure for them.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So just make sure that you write them and keep those emails and everything with you. So when your daughter goes there, she has those documents to show that in
So
case.
the right to the Canadian bank, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yes, not to the Indian bank, the Canadian bank, yes, where you've opened the account.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay.
All right, thanks. All right, so once you have the GIC, so you've got your conditional or unconditional offer, then you've got your medical done, then you have your GIC in place, and then after GIC, then you can choose the stream in which you want to apply for your visa. So now there's a general and an SDS. The SDS is called the Student Direct Scheme, which on the Canadian High Commission website says very categorically that it's a preferred option. It's not that, that's the only option, but it says it's a preferred option, which means that the Canadian High Commission would prefer if somebody is applying under an SDS. But however, the decision-making process would still remain the same, right? So I'll talk about how they take a decision, but the decision process of evaluating a visa application would still remain the same, but it's the preferred option. So SDS would essentially mean that you have to pay the 1 year of tuition fees in advance. In general, you can show the equivalent amount of money in the saving account to prove that the parents or the sponsor or the student has enough money to cover the first 1 year of expense. So now I keep repeating myself so that I make sure that we all understand and we are on the same page, because we as counselors, we have all the details and we can just keep moving on, right? But sometimes there's a disconnect. So first is the admission offer, medical, then we have the GIC, and then we have chosen the SDS or the general stream. In SDS, 1 year fees. In general, we have to show the total amount in the saving account. All right. And then now this is what is required. This is where you see everyone saying that this is what is required and we are good to go. As a counselor and as a person who's been in this field for long, I always focus on the visa law. Now, if we understand the visa law, the law says two things, or rather three things. One is intent to go and study there. It has to be very clear. Second is social and financial ties of the home country. Now, what does this mean? If I've paid the money or if I've shown the money, does it prove financial ties? No, it doesn't. It just shows the capability to pay the fees. Financial ties would essentially mean, what are the parents doing in India? Do they have an annual income which is coming in? Savings, investments, right? Do they have property? So that shows your financial ties to your home country. We have met the minimum requirement, but we should always go beyond that to show that family has ties in the home country, to make the case much stronger, because any application which is adjudicated by the officer is looked upon by a visa law, which says that any student who's going to Canada, UK, or US is considered a potential immigrant until proven otherwise. So in order to show that you're not a potential immigrant, your intent to study, if your intent to study is not there, it's not very clear, the officer will say, why should I even go further, right? That's one thing. Second is financial ties. Third is, of course, your professional goals in your home country. That's how you show your intent to return back to your home country. Now, for Canada, the most important document are the SDS document, the financial papers, and the cover letter. Now, let's assume that the visa officer is looking at almost 200, 300 applications a day. One visa officer could be reviewing maybe 50, 60, 70, or maybe 100 applications a day. How would he know that this person is a legitimate student and he has reasons to come back? Only by seeing a cover letter which shows his intentions. Now, what are the intentions? To come back to your home country and look at your career goals here. All right. So how do we frame the cover letter? Now, once again, I'll go back to the visa law. The law says intent to study. So when I say that this is what I've studied here, or it could be a lot of people do a very general kind of an SOP, which says that I want to go and study in Canada. Canada is very global. It's very friendly. It's cost effective. All that is, all those features, it's not your intent to go and study there. It's not your reason to go and study there. So a reason has to be built. And how do you build a reason? By showing your career goals. That's how we build it. If you go backwards, if I have to be a financial analyst, so what do I study? If I want to be a AI specialist, what do I study there, right? And then, of course, what's happening in India, how Indian industries are growing, what are the next level of technology which is coming in India and internationally. And that's how you connect, by saying that this is why I want to go and study there. The choice of a university largely should be, not largely, it should be focused on the entire hero of the entire script has to be your course content and curriculum, because that's what will improve on your skill sets, not the ranking. The ranking is an additional part, right? The teaching methodology, of course, how practical it is. But what will you study is the most important thing. Will that connect with your career goals or not? The choice of college, how do you narrow down on that? By doing a research, by looking various other colleges, comparing the course content and curriculum, and then deciding this fits me the best because this is what I want to learn. And this is what I can deliver once I come back to my home country. So what will I go and what have I studied here? What will I study in Canada? Why have I chosen Canada? Not because it's effective or it gives me an opportunity to have a work permit or it leads to a PR or it's very global, it's very friendly. No, Canada. Why? Because the way the universities have developed themselves over there, how they have created the course content, how they are welcoming international students to get a larger perspective. And then why this particular university? Again, like I said, compare the course content, curriculum in your cover letter. Then your finances, right? This is what I've received as a tuition waiver. This is what I've paid already. This is what I have, and this is what my parents do. That's the annual income. So we have a little description over there. And then your career goals in India. What will you come here and study? Work. Which are the organization? What are your career goals? What are your social ties? That's how you sum it up, right? So when the officer, the visa officer is looking at your case, and again, when we do the cover letter, in the cover letter, the sequence, whatever I studied here, so that should go as a document, right? Why particular university? So the university, and if you've applied to other colleges, finances, right? It should go in that sequence so that it becomes easier for the visa officer to look at your case when he's looking at hundreds of applications. That's how it stands out, right? The timeline for an SDS application, once when you put in, is about 30 working days or lesser. However, during the pandemic, it was taking longer. In 2020 and 21, it took the longest. But 22, I've seen it come very fast, right? General visa categories, when you apply, it takes about 45 working days, sometimes faster, but ballpark is 30 days and 45 working days. So that's how the Canadian visas would work. If you have any question on Canada, we can take that, then I can move on to.
Yeah, Sanjay, there's a question from Ria. She said,
UK, actually, there's some UK questions. So, let me go ahead, yeah.
I have a question for Canada. May I ask?
So,
Vivek? Yes, please. Sanjay, I have a question about what you have just said. So in the process of SDS application, there is no place where you can show your parents' income or assets.
No, there is, sir. So when it says other, other documents, there's where you can upload those documents.
Other documents, I thought only says SOP, right? The statement.
No, you can include. You have to have that kind of a PDF width that can actually go into it. That's what.
So
exactly.
What you're suggesting is when you write your statement of purpose, you annex these documents to that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. Like I said, it is very important to understand the visa law and then, cater to that. Minimum, we have done that. Minimum everybody is doing. But if you understand the visa law, and the visa law, like I explained, intention to study and reasons to come back, strong social ties, financial ties. Yes, you must put those documents for sure. It would really, really help, and it would expedite and also the understanding of the visa officer. Let's understand one thing: the officer is looking at India. They don't know you. You have all the good intentions, but how would the visa officer know, right? It becomes very difficult for him to actually look at, understand, and comprehend. So we should not leave to his imagination. Let's capture his imagination and deliver that.
Okay,
Right.
so it's part of your statement, right? These
Oh yes, it
documents.
should be a part of the SOP. When you do the uploading of documents in the other, try and minimize, try and squeeze your documents, and then do send them for sure.
Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Sanjay, there are a couple of questions on UK. I think that.
can I ask my question, please?
Sure.
Ria's question is on Canada. Yeah. So yes,
Hi. So I'm Ria, and I'm actually a UK citizen, but I'm a permanent resident in India. I have my OCI in India, and I'd be applying to start for a study permit in Canada. And for me, I was just kind of a bit confused about whether I should apply for a student direct stream or regular permit, considering my citizenship status. I know I'm eligible for the student direct stream, but I wasn't sure which one would be faster. And the second question I had was I was looking online about documentation for the student direct stream, and it was said that I would require a language proficiency test, like IELTS, for example. And I was kind of unclear of whether that would be required if I'm a British citizen, because I didn't require an IELTS to apply at any university or anything. So I was just wondering if the IELTS would also be required in the regular study permit as well.
Okay, so if you are applying under the SDS, and if your university has provided a statement which says that the student is proficient in English, then you don't need one,
Right.
right? Okay, so that clears. And your first question was about the general and the SDS,
Yeah, it was.
right? So I mean, it all depends. Like, you know, what is your preference? Like I said, the High Commission on the website says it's a preferred option. However, but it also depends on the university that you're going, you know, how good the university is. If it's like University of Toronto or, you know, McGill and the top universities, then you could choose, you know. But the Canadian High Commission tries and pushes the student towards the SDS.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
so there are a couple of more questions. Maybe we can take it at this time. So I don't have the name. Somebody says, sir, my son is working on STEM OPT, but his F1 visa is expired.
Okay.
So can't come to India because we are scared he might not get visa approved.
Okay.
He has 1 year of OPT left, unfortunately. Not get picked up on H1 lottery. Please advise what we should do.
All right, great. Okay, so this, yeah, we would have addressed this when we get
Yeah.
into the, but we can still answer that, you know. Okay, so the answer to that question is, like, you know, if you look at the I-20 third page very categorically says travel authorization and work authorization. So for an OPT, a student must have his OPT approval, which is called the EAD card. That's one. His current employment letter that he is currently working with an organization, right? Third, when he's planning to travel to India, then he should go to his ISSO office at the university and get both the stamps stamped on his I-20, the travel authorization, and yes, the work authorization. And if his visa is expired, he can get a new I-20 from the university, because OPT is a part of the education system. It's not something which a student should not be doing. It is a part of the education system. That's the reason they have an OPT, and they have the I-20, which says very categorically work authorization. So he can come here, he can get a visa renewed. But what I would suggest is, before he comes here, he should make sure that these documents are in place. He should start his visa application, right? Pay the visa fees, schedule an appointment, and then come to India, then plan. Because once you put in your application at the embassy, I would assume that he would qualify for an interview waiver, because he's a continuing student and going back to the same university. The timeline taken after submission of the document at the embassy is about 7 to 8 working days. That's where the officer decides either to call for an interview or issue a visa. Largely, most of my students, those who have come back on STEM OPT, their visa's been approved, even under the interview waiver. So I don't see an issue. You know, it's not a matter of great concern. It is a matter of concern whether we'll get a visa appointment or not, but approval, I don't see an issue.
Okay, so very quickly, one more question for UK visa, since we were talking about it earlier. Should the money be in the student's account or in the parent's account?
Either. It could be in the student's account. If it's in the student account, then you cut down on the documentation like the birth certificate and the sponsorship letter. Even if it's in the parent's account, it can be there, but along with that, they have to submit a sponsorship letter and a proof of relationship, the birth certificate.
So one more UK question. For UK, IELTS is mandatory. Minimum score, what is the minimum score required?
Minimum score is 6 in all. However, again, it depends on what's mentioned on the CAS. If the CAS says the IELTS is required, then it's required. If it says student is English proficient, not required, then you don't need one.
Right. So I have a request for information on Netherlands visa, Sanjay. Somebody needs to leave, so if you could quickly address that before we move on to,
Okay.
back to our.
Right. So Netherlands visas primarily is that you have to, once you get the admission offer, you have to get, of course, the medical done. The only difference is that you have to pay 25% of the tuition fees mandatorily, and the rest of the amount should be in the saving account. And then, like I said, all other documents like the bank statements, the fixed deposits, everything else can be included. But the only difference between Netherlands visa and most of the Netherlands visas come from there itself. So it's not going to be a difficult task, but you have to pay 25% of the tuition fees in advance.
Right. I think you can proceed now.
All right.
Thanks.
So now we're going to touch upon US. And I guess there are lots and lots of questions on US because there's a lot of hype going on. What's going to happen about the visa interviews? Are the dates going to be released or not? To start with, yesterday, the embassy released thousands and thousands of visa appointments. So that's one. Up until now, a lot of students were saying ki visa date milega ki nahi milega. Now, when they've got the visa appointment, some are saying I've gotten late, I've gotten early, I've gotten from different locations, but that's fine. The good news is that they've started rolling it out. So step one, in order to start with the US student visa process is to get your I-20. Now, most of the time, the understanding is that the I-20 is coming from a college. Yes, it is coming. But if anybody who's received an I-20, and if they could see the I-20, the top left of the I-20, right on top of the service number, there are two major departments which are involved. One is Department of Homeland Security called DHS, and the other one is the USCIS, United States Citizen and Immigration Services. And any form in the US starting with I is coming from immigration. So it's, yes, coming from the college, right? But it is already, in sync with these two departments. So once you get the I-20, then you can start filling your visa form called DS-160. So any form which starts with DS is Department of State. So now you've got three departments: Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, DS. So all these three departments are involved. According to the regulation, earlier the students could not apply for a visa 120 days prior to the college start date, but now they've changed it. They can apply within 365 days of the college start date. So which has a huge impact and a very good indication for students. If a student cannot go, let's say, for a spring session, and if he wants to defer it to a fall session, so he doesn't have to go and reapply for a visa. He can just get a deferred I-20 and apply. So that's a long-term kind of thing we address as of now. So student applying for their visas, getting an I-20, then they have to fill the visa form called DS-160. After completing their DS-160, then they have to create their profile on the CGI portal to pay the visa application fees. Now, if a student has already had a US visa earlier, the new regulation says that they may qualify for an interview waiver. However, again, the regulation says if the visa was issued to a child after the age of 14, only then he may qualify for an interview waiver. Otherwise, he has to go for an interview. Okay, so once you pay the visa application fee, once you create your profile, you have to pay the visa application fees. You could pay the visa fees by going to the nearest Axis Bank. As of now, the visa fees is $160, equivalent to 13,440 rupees. 30th May, they're changing it to $185. All right. And once you pay the fees, it takes about 24 hours for the activation. Once the receipt is activated, it is auto-populated. You don't have to go pay the fees, come back, log in and start typing in the MRV receipt number. It will not accept it. It's an auto-populated process. The bank would accept the money. The bank would then send it to the embassy. The embassy would then, update the record. That's how it gets all interconnected. Whether you pay through NEFT, IMPS, phone banking, or the Axis Bank, the average time is up to 24 hours. So once you pay the fees, once the receipt is activated, then when you log in, the system will give you access to look at calendars. So there are two dates to be booked. One is the OFC or the VAC. It is where you go in for your fingerprinting. It's not like document verification or document submission. No. You have to go there with your passport, your I-20, your visa form, your DS-160. They'll click a picture, take your fingerprints, and you're out. And then you also have to book a visa appointment, which is called the counselor appointment. and they have to be booked simultaneously. It's not that today I log in, I book one date, and then maybe after 5 days I come back and book the consular date. That's not possible. When you log in, it has to be done simultaneously. If the dates are not available, log out and log in after a couple of hours. Most of the mistakes that the students do is once they log in, if there are no dates available, they go back, they change the location. If they're in Delhi, they look at Delhi. If the Delhi dates are not available, they look at Chennai, Mumbai, and then log out. And when they log in, the system blocks them for 72 hours because the system detected that there is a suspicious activity which is going on. So please do not do that. Don't go back and forth, because even if you log in once and if you keep changing, the system would count this as multiple logins. So the best way of doing it is log in, check if there are no dates available, log out, and maybe check back after some time. Once the visa dates are booked, then you have to start collecting all your financial papers. Now the I-20 documents and your financial documents are different, because when you send your documents to the I-20 for your I-20, you need to send a bank balance certificate which has the equivalent amount of money which covers your living and your tuition fees. That goes to the university. University then sends it to the USCIS, because the USCIS law says that a person who's coming into the US should not become a public charge. The public charge means that there is no money and he's taking money from the state government. So in order to support that, they would take a letter from the bank or an education loan entity which says that they have enough money to cover the first 1 year of expense, right? Now, when we go in for visa interview, like I said in the beginning also, the officers are looking at your financial ties. What is the family doing here in India? Do they have savings? Do they have annual income? Do they have properties? So carrying all those documents become very important when you go in for your visa interview. And once your date is scheduled, once your documents are in place, then we start preparing the students for visa interview. Now, any interview is subjective. What you say, what I understand, or what visa officer could understand could be two different things, right? Because the visa officer's mindset is coming through a visa law. The law says that anyone who's applying for a visa is a potential immigrant until proven otherwise. So you have to show your intention. And there are hundreds and thousands of people applying for visas. And on a given day, the officer would have only 1 or 2 minutes to look at your case, understand what you're saying, and based on that understanding, issue a visa. So a lot of people, what I've heard is that students come back and tell me that, sir, a lot of my friends have gone for an interview and they've been telling me that I have to be extremely brief. I don't have to give any information which is extra. Right and wrong. What does brief mean, right? What is extra? So we need to understand and prepare the student in a very holistic manner where he understands the visa law, what is the visa officer's expectations, what does each question mean, and how do you frame the answer, and what should be the sequence of the answer, right? I've had students, brilliant profile, but they go and make little small mistakes here and there. If I just talk about finance, if somebody has taken an education loan, but the family has enough money, but most of the time the student is focusing on the availability of funds because he believes that the officer wants to see whether the funds are available or not. And he goes and says, how will you fund yourself? So I've taken an education loan, which covers my tuition fees. And then the officer takes an interview and decides not to issue a visa because the student did not establish financial ties to his home country. Even if you've taken an education loan, it is important. Even if you're getting 100% scholarship, I've seen PhD students, right? They get 100% scholarship. Still, I insist that you must carry your financial papers to show your financial ties to your home country. So the sequence of answer, the way you answer also becomes very important, right? So if I talk about the first question, why do you want to go to the US? There, the student would say, I want to go to the US because US education is globally recognized. The best of the universities are there, and it'll give me a lot of options and opportunities to grow professionally. Now, this is a very generic answer. This could be given by a person who's going in for an MBA. This could be answered by a person who's going for physiotherapy. This could be an answer given to a person who wants to go and do, let's say, machine learning. But in order to drive the interview, it is important that you provide your background. What have you studied here? What are you currently doing if you've been working? If not, what will you study there? And what are your career goals? If you deliver that answer, the officer has a clear straight line to understand that he understands what he wants to go and study there. He's identified his goals and he's identified how to reach those goals. Then again, why have you chosen this particular college? So again, like I said, the hero has to be the course content, the curriculum, the teaching methodology, the global perspective that a student would get, the international exposure, right? Funding, like I said, talk about your annual income, family's annual income. It could include parents, father, mother, brother, sister, self, grandparents, limited to that. If there's anyone who's extended family, then again, you have to have the funds in your parents' account, and the extended family can give you a sponsorship letter and their bank statements. If it's an education loan, first talk about the family's income, savings, investments, properties, and then the education loan. Again, any conversation is subjective. A lot of students will go and say that, my parents have enough money and we've got enough savings and investments to take care of my expenses. What does enough mean? Your enough, my enough could be two different things. So I call it a measurable answer. When we say a measurable answer, what does that mean? So both my parents have been working for the past 20 years. Their current annual income put together is 25 lakhs or whatever. We have savings and investments worth 50 lakhs. Savings and investments would mean fixed deposit, shares, bonds, mutual funds, PF, GPF, all put together, not separately. The child doesn't have to remember the fixed deposit numbers or the shares numbers, all put together, right? And we also own properties worth X crores. In addition to this, I've taken an education loan. Or looking at my credentials, the college has offered me a scholarship. So all these things, first establish your financial ties and then talk about your loan and your scholarship, not right in the beginning. A scholarship for us is a huge thing. However, if you think of an American, he's seeing that this child has taken away the taxpayers' money, right? We understand that it's a great honor for me, but he's confused between the visa law and his country, right? So we have to first establish our financial ties and then talk about all these things. Even if a student is going for a PhD who's getting paid, and in fact, he's getting paid to live there, they still have to establish their financial ties. And then the comparison between why not India, why US. So over here, straight away, a student doesn't have to say that I did not apply to any of the Indian colleges. He's got to say that I did look at Indian colleges. I compared the course content, curriculum, and then decided US would be a better option for me because it's industry-oriented education. It is upgraded to match the industry, the teaching methodology, the global. Then we can discuss on various things. The last but not the least question is, what if you're offered a job in the US? This is where most of the students gets confused between OPT and work. Okay, so work essentially means your H1, right? What if you're offered a job in the US and I would still prefer to come back and work in India because US education would give me the kind of skill sets to progress here because India is still a growing economy. So my career growth in India would be much bigger and better, plus I'll be closer to my family. What about your OPT if this question comes in? Now, most of the students will say, because I'm saying I've not worked there, so I will say that I will not take OPT. That's a wrong answer. Why? Because your I-20 gives you that option and opportunity to work in the US. And we keep saying that US education is very practically designed. And when I'm getting an option to work there, I'm saying no. So the officer understands he's trying to overstretch. All right. So OPT has to be yes. The answer is yes, sir. I like to take that option because it is an integral part of the US education system, which allows students to experience the real world, practice what they've learned in the classroom. I like to take that experience and go back to the home country to use it. So I'm again and again saying I'll come back to my home country and use it. All right. So that's how we round it up. And US visas is not, when we do the counseling, it's not like a blanket. It's a very individual, every person is different. Every person's goal and aspirations are different. Family backgrounds are different. So his answers has to be his answers, not like somebody else's answer. So that's what the focus is. I guess I've given you a lot of information here. I hope that helps you. And Richaji and Omiji, if they have any questions, I'll be open to answer them. Right? Thank you.
Biren is one question. Biren says, Biren, would you like to speak out or would you like to type it here? Okay, please go ahead and speak. You need to unmute yourself, Viren.
Hi, this is Biren Sampath speaking. Now,
Yeah.
I was listening to Sanjay talk just now, and he said that you need to prepare a case for going and studying there. That is the financials and reason why you want to go and what you're going to do and everything. Now, I have a question. My son already is in the States. He's completing his 1-year OPT. He's coming back, and because he's got a admission to masters in August. So he's coming back. I've already got the appointment and everything. Now, do I still need to create all this, these papers, etc.? Because there's an interview waiver as such. So do I still need, because I don't know where I would add it to the DS 160.
Okay. So I understand your question. Like if you remember, I said in the beginning, if the student qualifies for an interview waiver, the
Yeah.
only documents that he has to submit at the VFS office are going to
Yes.
be his passport,
Yes.
his visa appointment letter, his DS 160, his I-20, and 2 photographs.
Perfect.
Once it goes to the VFS office, from there it goes to the US Embassy.
Yeah.
The officer looks at the case and decides to either issue a visa
Yeah.
or call a person for an interview. If he's
Perfect.
called for an interview, only then he has to take those documents. Otherwise,
Great.
no.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye.
Any other questions? Any queries, any concerns that, anyone has regarding visa? Sanjay, seems everybody is quite happy with what you've presented to us.
That's what I was thinking, that no question. That means I've covered almost everything and I've answered those questions, in a way that everyone could possibly understand. So I'm happy. Otherwise, I get lots and lots of questions and
Yeah,
worry.
so I guess what happens is, when you start actually putting the documents together, that's the time when you realize, like, you get some questions in mind. That's the
Right.
when they want to get in touch with you and say, oh, you said something, but then there's something missing here. So
Right.
as of
Right.
now, they seem to be all okay. So what
Romy, have we addressed all the questions in the chat?
we've addressed all the questions.
Thank you.
So what I was thinking was maybe we could share your number, Sanjay, and any, these people can get in touch with you as and when required.
Sure. Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to assist and provide this information.
Okay.
The whole idea is
Yeah.
that, because there's so much of misinformation going on, and because of these digital platform, there's such a scare and stress for students. It's difficult to handle that stress. Visa I can handle, because students and parents would call, visa date nahi mil raha hai, kya kare? Will I get an appointment or not? So if you remember what I said in the beginning was, if a person is getting an I-20, now on the face of it, it looks like the university is, issuing it. But there are 2 major departments, Department of Homeland Security and USCIS. And here it is another government agency called the US Embassy, Department of State. And I keep telling everyone, boss, they also have computers. They also have data architecture. They know the number of people getting the I-20s. They would release those dates to match it up. So don't worry. Maybe on the first lot, on the first day, you didn't get, but eventually you will. They are aware of the numbers. So please relax. The appointments are going to be available, and it is just a matter of time, right? I'm sure.
Yeah. So somebody has 1 second. We have somebody asking. Rama Lakshmi says, could you please repeat the info shared regarding financial during the visa interview, please?
Okay, for the US visa. All right. So like I said, let's make it a sequence. So in our work life or in our business life, we pay taxes. So we've got that shows annual income. So tax returns for the last 3 years. If we are working in an organization, then salary slips for the last 3 months, right? And then proof of investments, which could be fixed deposits, PF, GPF, shares, bonds, mutual funds, LIC policies, post office, and photocopies of your property papers. He just have to carry these documents. There is no evaluation to be done. There is no CA report to be made. You can just make a little, I would say, a 3-sequence information: annual income, X amount, total savings investments, X amount, property worth, X amount. The child has to remember these 3 things when going for the interview. That answers, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I would think so. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So, and there's somebody asking for the recording.
Okay.
I'll share the recording of this, so that is really recognize anybody who wants to extract any information in the middle of filing their papers or collecting their papers, they should have it with them. And also, Sanjay, if you would like to share or I can put your number in the chat.
Yeah, you can, right.
Yeah. For everybody to see, and you can get in touch with Sanjay and, okay. So will that be all, I guess? Let me just share Sanjay's number and then we can sign off, I guess. Sanjay, if you could just, okay, I have your number. I just type it
Yeah,
in.
it's there. Yeah,
I've
981.
added it, Romi.
You have, okay, wonderful.
All right, great.
Thanks, Sanjay.
Right.
Sanjay, I would really like to thank you so much. It was so much in detail, and I have gone through this whole process one by one, whatever you were saying. So it is very much in detail, and thank you so much for all the people who would be new to this process. They would really, really gain a lot out of this. Thank you so much.
Great, so much.
Thanks.
This is what I want to do to make it much easier and much more detailed, so that it's like easy to understand. But thank you so much for acknowledging it, Mr. Sampath. Thank you so much.
I'd also like to say something here. I'm Aditi's mother, Ganga, and I've been in touch with you, Mr. Sanjay, over the past few months, and this is for the US visa application.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to say that exactly the way you spelled it out today, in the middle of the night, I don't know, I woke up for something and just thought I'll take a look at how things are going. Traffic was less, and I did sort of secure both the appointments pretty easily.
Right.
And was quite relieved to have done that.
Great.
And so there's good hope for all others too who are waiting.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what I've been telling a lot of parents and everything. Just relax, because the American Embassy has made the announcement. They will release it. They're very well aware of what's happening. They have the plans in place. It is just that a lot of people have created a hype, and a lot of agents are coming and saying that we can book it for you. I've been telling parents, don't do that. You can do it for yourself. And good, Aditi ji, that you've acknowledged that. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Yeah, so before we sign off, there's one more question which has come in. Ramalakshmi wants to know if for some reason the initial student visas get rejected, is it possible to reapply for UK?
Yes. I mean, okay, so another question that a lot of people say, that I've applied to various other colleges, various other countries. If I get a visa for Canada, can I still apply for a US visa? Yes, you can. It's your choice, right? It is not negative. And a lot of people also talk about, like, if I have multiple I-20s, is that a negative? No, because it's a choice. If we talk about American mindset or a Canadian mindset, it's all matter of choice. I have chosen this, not that this was the only option. So choosing has a greater impact when you apply for a visa.
So my question here, when you said multiple I-20s, Sanjay, does that mean that, students can accept more than one college offer and not resign it, not give it back, and still apply for a visa, US visa? Because
great question. Yeah. So what happens is, when you get an I-20, if you have multiple I-20s, when you pay the service fees, the rest others are deactivated.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because service becomes very important. Service is the Department of Homeland Security. So the regulation, good question. When a person enters the US, right, that's how everything is linked. Department of Homeland Security, service number, DS-160, we mention it. A student enters the US, the immigration office, the USCIS says the student has entered. When a student enters the university, the US,
yes,
if he does not report to the college within 30 days, then Department of Homeland Security is looking for him. Right? So when he enters the US, within 30 days, he has to report to the college. When he reports to the college says he's entered. That's how everything gets sealed.
So that would mean, like, there is no obligation to kind of, tell your other colleges, like, if I accept, 3 offers from US, and of course, I will be applying, I get 3 I-20s. So do I need to surrender them, or it'll get done automatically the way you're saying? I mean, everything is, the processes are there and it'll get done automatically.
Right. It is, and it gets deactivated. However, as a good citizen, as a good human,
We need to surrender.
It is better to inform them. Thank you so much for the admission offer. However, I've chosen some other.
Yeah, no, why I'm asking this question again, because, as far as I know, earlier you had to kind of surrender one to get another I-20. That was the thing earlier. No, nothing of the sort. Okay.
You can have multiple I-20s, like I said, as a good person, as a good student, and to maintain great relationship, it is always good to inform that, sir, I've chosen this university. So, I mean, they would get to know, but it is always good.
No, yeah, that's, I think that's your responsibility as, yeah,
Yes.
perfectly fine. Right, anybody else, anything
Yeah,
else?
I would like to just ask a question. First of all, thank you so much for bringing in a sense of relief, because it's always, especially when you don't get a slot, when the thing opens up, it's
Right.
added tension. But I think you kind of relieved it, and thanks for this little tip of waking up in the middle of the night and cooking it, because we.
So that was from Aditi ji,
Yeah, that was from Aditi. Thanks, Aditi.
Right.
I think, the question that I have is like, definitely you did speak about a lot of things that, we have to be prepared for, and how to also prepare the child. But is there any red flag, like something that we don't, I mean, you should, something that will go into the don't column? Like, I didn't hear much of it, but if there is anything on top of your mind, could you please share it from your experience?
Sure. So if you remember the entire interview conversation that I had, I started by saying that intent to study, right? So that's one thing, right? And then the second very important thing I said, like, I want to upgrade my skills and come back to my home country. Would you like to work in the US? No, sir. So working intentions should be a big no. That's one. Second is like, very clearly that you want to go and study in America, and this is the program. These are the skill sets, the kind of content that I want to go and study there. These are the kind of skill sets. Your focus has to be there. So those are, I mean, if you just go and say that I've chosen this university because the location is great, or my uncle lives there, so my living expense will go down, right? Or, most of my friends have suggested that this is a great university. You're not spending thousands of dollars, to go and, go on anybody's recommendation. All right. Now we're talking to an American. For an American, for him, his choice is the most important thing, not the recommendation. That's the reason I said multiple I-20s. I chose this university, right? So it has to be your choice, and your choice, because you're going and studying in the US, spending hundreds and thousands of dollars, is your career. What is your career? How will you achieve that career? By studying in America. So the hero is the course content. And then how you relate it to your home country, what is happening here, what are the career options here, which are the organizations here that you want to come back and work for. There has to be a clear connection. That's, apart from all this, is a big no. I hope I've answered that.
Ramalakshmi. Okay, so Mariam, yeah. Please ask.
So I had asked if in the UK student visa it gets rejected the first time. Is it the same process?
Yes, it is the same process. And whenever a visa officer would refuse a visa, he'll give you a reason. That could be a very generic reason. But then again, if we look at our documents, our profile, and look at the reason, and then see if there were any gaps, we need to fill those gaps and then reapply. Right?
Okay.
But for UK visa, the most important thing is going to be your medical. You pay your surcharge fees, and then the documents that are there, the financial papers, the documents should show that the money is there for 28 days and more. That's really important and crucial.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. So I think that's it then.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
All
Sanjay. Thank you so much for spending this time on a Sunday morning with us. And his number has been shared. Anybody who needs any more information will get in touch with you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we might have another session. We'll keep you updated on the documents that are required for the visa purposes.
All right. Great.
Right.
Thank
And
you so
number
much. Thank you, Romiji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you. It was really very informative.
Right. I'm really happy that I could provide that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjay.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Sure that all
Thank you,
the needs will
Sanjay.
be approved, and students are going to be really happy. All the best. Thanks.